Hey everybody. Holy cow, that's a messy desk. I'll be right back. There we go, that's a little bit better. So I've still been building my Sisters of Battle. You can see this is my second Penitent engine that I've been putting together and painting. I actually had it glued together on its little pin, but the epoxy busted, and so I had to pull it off, and I'll need to re-glue it. I did not strip the paint off of it, which luckily the epoxy did that for me. So I'll have to go back and do that again. Always take the paint off so that it doesn't glue to the paint, it glues to the metal. But this one needs to be painted up, and that'll give me a total of 3. I'd originally kind of thought about building one of these on a video, but building the upper torso of this is such a pain that the entire video would just be me cursing and getting banned from being able to show my video to people under the age of 20. But because this flat part here, this flat part here, this backpack, the centerpiece, and then the person glued on the front are all separate metal pieces. And metal with very small contact points. I mean, like these flat sides, they attach the center point on those little button things. I had to drill through the sides to pin them, and even then, you know, I had to use JB Weld, which takes forever to set. I probably could find like a better epoxy, but the JB Weld holds so well after it's cured for a few days that it's the best, in my opinion, for holding on to the big pieces. And these things, I mean, they said on these little spindle legs that this is a pole sticking through a hole that doesn't quite fit true, and so you have to use a good bit of epoxy to get it to actually touch and attach to the sides, and then you have to set it to where you think it's going to fit, and you know, it's exciting. Basically, I had to break the epoxy and re-glue this one because I had glued the legs just a fraction too close to where this would not fit on the sides. It would not fit in. It was resting on the top edges of the legs. And so honestly, my recommendation for the Penitent engine, even though they are really good in combat, wait until they get the plastic kit, because the new rules that just came out with the beta codex, these things are 100 points each with 4 attacks, 8 attacks on the charge at strength 10, damage 3, AP minus 4. They're just really mean. Now granted, you have to get them in the charge range and all that fun jazz, but it's still very exciting. One of them killed Samael in close combat yesterday, actually, and another one destroyed a unit of the Dark Angels bikers, which was very nice. But speaking of my sister's army, the way I've got it set up is a huge chunk of my points, 500 points, is a knight, because the sisters really lack anti-tank or just high volume of fire ability, unless you're just going to take squad after squad after squad of metal sisters. But to me, that's not really thematic, and it doesn't fit with the fluff well, even though the Knight Crusader does really well in the shooting phase and really supplements all the stuff that I need that the sisters lack. So what my plan is to get a cadre of 3 Inquisitors, and here's one I painted up a few years ago. I have another one completely painted, but I couldn't find him for the life of me. He's gone on some secret mission for the Ecclesiarchy. But this guy needs a little bit of touch-up work where I've handled him too much. He's got a metal bald spot on the top of his head. But overall, I mean, he can be a guy with a bolt pistol and a power sword. But what I'm really looking for is the psyker abilities. And the Inquisition fits well with the sisters, because they've worked together, at least, if not willingly, at least cooperatively in the fluff and whatnot. And they're both different arms of the Ecclesiarchy-ish thing. I've got this other one. This one came out of the Inquisitor Cotiaz Retinue, the old metal set, which I found on eBay for relatively cheap. Not cheap at all, but it was relatively cheap. It was about $50 for him and a whole bunch of other metal models. And the last Inquisitor that I plan on building is this guy, Gregor Eisenhorn. If you've read the books, you know that he's really a cool character and like 40K to the core. I won't spoil it, but he really kind of embodies the dangers of working with the warp. And so this is a cool model, and when I got it, I was super excited until I opened it, because when you open it, here we go, let's see if I can open the box on camera. When you open the box, you suddenly discover that he's Finecast. And I have not had a good relationship with Finecast. One of the first models I ever painted was a Finecast librarian for the Grey Knights. And honestly, putting him together and priming him and then painting him up was not that big of a deal. I liked it. Oh, well, Finecast will be good. But as the years progressed, even in just room temperature, like my office gets maybe up to 80 sometimes during the summer. And I've got a little personal AC unit in here that keeps it usually around 75. But still his force stave melted. Not melted, but it drooped like in the need of some space Viagra or whatever. And so I just got kind of bitter towards Finecast, and there was a couple other models that I got that were Finecast, and it just didn't work out well. And so I swore off of them for a while. And here you can see all the pieces of Gregor. Well, almost all of them. There's a couple more in there. He's got his staff and his cloak and his chest. But then a few months ago, they released the first new Sister of Battle in a long time, Sister Viridian. And I built her yesterday. And building her yesterday, they've changed the formula to the Finecast. It's still bendy, but it's not as soft. It's still a little porous, but not as bad. And using some Gorilla Glue to get it all stuck together, you know, it gave me a little bit of hope. I've got water effects on here because all my sisters are based on the Sector Imperialis bases, and this will work well with some of the mud bases. But it gave me a little bit of hope. I mean, if you look real closely, like especially along the edge of her sword, you can see some serious pockmarks and little holes. There was some basically blisters through the sleeves of her cloaks, and along the bottom of this thing there was some pockmarks, little pockets, little bubbles. There we go, that's the word I'm looking for. But overall it feels a little better, so I have some hope that Gregor will turn out okay. But anyway, I'm going to build him up, and then I will post a finished video I'll add him to the end of the video as a finished product. But still, you know, it's the Finecast. I'm hoping that that they don't do so many limited releases in Finecast. I do have Sly Marlborough as well, who's Finecast. But like, you know, all the Primaris Lieutenants, they make them in clamshell plastics. So I mean, the most famous Inquisitor of all time, I was kind of hoping he was going to be plastic. You know, look, I mean, they even had a little special individual sprue for his noggin. But alas and alack, no. Maybe it's an allusion to his later books that he's not quite as solid as he seems to be. But anyway, that ventures into spoiler territory, so I won't go there. Anyway, I'll show you when he is finished. So this took a lot longer than I expected, mainly because I had to go pick up the kids from daycare and then from school, and in between then that was hours and hours basically. So I started building it at about 11 o'clock, and now it is 20 till 7, and I've got to hurry because I need to go, 20 till 6, excuse me. Got to go take my older son to Scouts. But you can see, you know, he looks fine. There are some real problems with this, however, and that's the well, like, for one thing, there's so much flash on these things. I mean, look at how many different sprue lines there are through here. Just to the top of that will go on to the plastic base. And, you know, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You know, all on here. And, like, for the staff, there was a little vent hole for each of the little nubs around the edge of the skull. And, you know, at this scale you have to be really careful not to trim off the detail when you're trimming off the flashing. Like, there was There still probably is a little bit of flashing right here on top of the book that I just couldn't get rid of. I had to go all the way through here to get rid of some of the seam lines. Now the bonus for Finecast is it's so easy to cut. It's easy to get all the flash out. But the downside is that it's so easy to cut because if you're not careful, you suddenly cut off a huge chunk of the model, and it's not like other resin where you can just pick it up and put it back on. I mean, the Finecast, when you trim it, it flakes. These little pieces will peel off and chip basically. But the biggest flaw is you can see his foot is split. And so when I glue this onto Inquisitorial Eye, as he's walking down the street here, I'm going to have to probably fill that in with some PVA glue, because the Finecast is not sturdy enough to use, say, like perfect plastic putty or anything else like that to put on there, and I don't have any thin super glue at the moment that I could use to just put on the top and let it cover over. But I will try to get him primed up so you can see what he looks like. Primed and painted, because again, I do want to do the Heroic Triumvirate with 3 different Inquisitors. And if I can find the third one, I can run whatever it is, the three HQs as a detachment, and do that. I can go ahead and practice with that for a little bit, because Eisenhorn, he gets a daemon host that he can call on if he needs it really bad, and that it really buffs him up. And while Eisenhorn's on the board, he really buffs it up, and so it makes him a mean thing. Though he does lose some of his leadership abilities if he does summon the demon host. Mainly that nobody will use his inquisitorial leadership, because all of a sudden, he's summoned a demon host. Maybe he's not a real inquisitor. But anyway, I hope that gives you some look at the newer Finecast, the newer things. We'll see how these paint out. Hope you guys are having a good one. Adios.